oh my gosh, God just did a miracle. Like God is real and we have no words for it. Welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake. And guys, this week has been wild. Like genuinely, if you have been following along on Instagram, you know this week has been absolutely insane for me. Like truly miracle story, like truly Zach and I being like, oh my gosh, God just did a miracle. Like God is real and we have no words for it kind of week. So like I said, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably already saw this, but I wanted to share a little piece of it on the podcast too, because genuinely this week has felt like full circle, obviously extremely faith stretching and just like I said, like an only God kind of story. So for those of you guys who don't follow me on Instagram, I want to share just a little recap. I'm not going to go into like too much detail with all of it, but definitely go read my last couple posts and see what's going on through there if you want to know more details. But basically, Zach and I have been walking through an infertility journey for almost 3 years. I have never actually shared about this journey until very recently on Instagram or on social media. I've never talked about it on the podcast or anything like that. And it has been a really, really hard season in our lives. Definitely one of the hardest things that we've walked through in our marriage together. At the same time, it's been like really growing in our faith, which is interesting when you go through something hard and it pushes you and fills you with hope and heartbreak at the same time, you know? And yeah, we have been believing for a baby for so long. And there are so many times where it's like, okay, God, like, when is this going to happen? You know, like you think growing up that you can just like plan for things, which is so silly to think that, you know, like I remember being in high school and it's like, where will you be in 10 years? And I'm like, I'm going to be married and I'll have 3 kids. And, you know, just like you think that you can plan your life. And sometimes things like this happen. And it's just one of those reminders where it's like, you're not as in control as you think you are. So like I said, we've been trying for about 3 years and it's really hard because on paper, everything looked like it should be working, but it clearly wasn't because otherwise we would have a baby in our arms by now. So yeah, a few weeks ago, I basically was scheduled to have surgery. I guess it wasn't a few weeks ago. Guys, it was literally this week. What am I saying? Okay, so literally it was on Tuesday I was scheduled to have surgery, okay? And this has been like a couple months coming. So I've been planning on this surgery, and if I'm really honest, the last like 3 months, my prayer has been, God, please, like if there is any way that I could get pregnant before having to have surgery, please let that happen. And I really, really, really didn't want to have surgery. And the surgery was like the hope of a maybe. Like it wasn't to fix anything and it wasn't really a definitive promise of having answers after. It was just like, yep, we're going to have surgery. We're going to explore some things. And then maybe we'll have answers as to why this isn't happening. And maybe those answers can provide a path forward. And we didn't know what that path was going to be, right? So it could be IVF. It could be adoption. It could be, we don't know anything. And we just need to keep trying, which obviously was going to be hard in itself. And so basically 2 days before the surgery, I shared publicly for the first time about our infertility journey. Zach and I had talked about it and decided that it was best. And I really didn't like post it because I expected anything to change from it. I really honestly posted it because it was a processing thing for me. I happened to randomly take pictures because I had a backdrop set up for something else. And I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to like process something in my own soul and really just like think more about this infertility journey and what it means to me. And if I were to share anything with anybody, what I would express about it. And I felt like, you know, I've got this backdrop up. Why not do a little photo shoot and kind of like tell that story in photos? And then when I did, I wrote out, if I were to post it, a caption. for it. And as Zach and I like read over it together and all of the things, we were like, I think it's time to post it. And so that was the first thing. I was just processing out loud with creativity and with art, as we do as creatives, right? And then the other piece of it was that it honestly just felt inauthentic to not share with you when this impacts like quite a bit of my creative and business life, because I wouldn't be able to share even just on my stories what was going on if I didn't share kind of the behind the scenes first. So I shared publicly for the first time. And like I said, I really posted it because it just felt inauthentic to not bring you guys in on it. So I did. And then it was so crazy just to see like the outpouring of your prayers and your love as I shared very vulnerably about it. Whether it was on Instagram or on Facebook, or like we know each other personally, or we know each other only online. It was just really so beautiful and so impactful for Zach and I to read these just genuine prayers over us. And some of you sent me voice memos, and I've never heard your voice before because we only know each other online, and you just prayed over us. And it was such a beautiful thing. I knew that there would be a lot of people who would reach out. I don't think I anticipated just the amount of community that surrounded us. And then also the amount of you who shared your own stories and trusted me with sharing stories of your own infertility, your own loss, or kind of the unknown of what's going on with you. And that also was really impactful for me, just the amount of us that have walked through this kind of stuff. And it's so sad and it's so broken and so not how God designed it. But yet here we are being able to share openly with one another and not feel alone because I opened up about it. And I really feel like I had thought multiple times about sharing it online before. I even started to like write something out back in May for like Mother's Day, because Mother's Day was a really hard day for me this year. And I wrote it out, but I felt like every time that I had gone to share something, it was more so out of like my own brokenness. And I didn't want that to be the case. I didn't want to share something out of my own brokenness or my own sadness. And while I shared out of my own grief this time, I also felt like I shared out of a place where God had allowed me to process before, and it felt like the right time to share. And I think that I saw that in the response of people, where it wasn't like, oh, woe is Alex, pity. Like I wasn't desiring anyone's like pity or even anyone's comfort, but yet your words were comforting to me. And God just so used that in Zach and I. And then not only did he use it just to comfort us, but also like God hears our prayers, and in the vulnerability of prayer, God's power is seen so much. And 2 days after sharing publicly for the first time about our infertility journey, I found out that I was pregnant. Yeah. So if you're hearing this for the first time, I know you just gasped, because we gasped too. It was crazy. We found out that we were pregnant. Not only was that 2 days after sharing online for the first time, but also it was like 2 days before I had to have surgery. Can you believe that? Like, that is so wild. I had literally been praying for 3 months, and I had like my close friends and our pastors praying with us that that would be the case, that miracle would happen. I would not have to get surgery. And 2 days before having to get surgery, I found out that I'm pregnant. Like God was already working the miracle by the time that I shared about this. And then it was so cool because it had opened the door for conversation. Like the vulnerability of it was already there. And I think that through sharing it, I didn't necessarily like feel called and compelled to share. It just felt like the right thing to do. But then it was really cool because I did feel called and compelled to share God's miracle of the fact that we are pregnant, and sharing the miracle that God did genuinely just felt like I have to share this. Like I can't not share what your prayers did in our life. And that's just such an amazing thing. Like I said, like in the vulnerability of prayer and even confession, like bringing people into my hurt, bringing people into our grief. I mean, God just worked in it, and it was such an impactful, cool thing. And obviously we are so early into all of this. And even that is vulnerable, obviously, because Yeah, we're really early into it, and we are not past that first trimester, and that is extremely vulnerable to share right now. But yeah, I'll get to that later. I have some notes. I'm just yapping at this point, but I do want to talk about that a little bit later. But for right now, I really wanted to kind of do an episode where obviously I share pieces of that story because it's such an amazing story, and we are literally living out a miracle right now, which is such a special thing. But I also think so much of this miracle came from the art of surrender. And I am not always good at surrendering things, guys. I'm going to be so real. I think one of the reasons that I love owning my own business is because I'm in control. And I don't know if you guys relate to that or not, but I love to kind of build my own schedule and build my own rhythms for things. And not just like something that's really cool about being an entrepreneur, but if we're honest, control is also something that I could deal with in many other areas of my life. But because this story is so obviously about God's faithfulness and his timing, not my own, I also think like it's such a cool opportunity to talk about what it looks like to live open-handed with God. And maybe that's in something really personal like this. Maybe you are dealing with infertility. If you are, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that that we have had to walk through this, and that you are walking through this, or that you've had to in the past. Like, it is not something that I wish on anyone, and it's absolutely terrible. And so if that's you, like, listen to this with, I don't know, open hands of what God can do. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but he can. And then maybe for you, it's like you're not dealing with anything like that at all, but maybe you listen to this episode about what it looks like to live open-handed, this art of surrender as a creative or as a business owner, or maybe you're looking to get married and there's just no one in sight for that, or you just broke up with somebody and you thought they were going to be the one and you're dealing with the grief of that. Like, I don't know who you are, but for me, I like to have control and I like my plan. And sometimes our plans just don't work out the way that we thought they were. But I feel like surrender isn't something that we ever feel like we've mastered, because like there are certain situations, like even in just the things I just said, right? The person that you're going to marry, in business and creativity, obviously in this, and infertility, like I can feel like I've mastered one area of it and move on from that. But I haven't actually mastered like surrender as a whole, because then another situation pops up and I'm struggling with closed fists trying to control my own plan, right? So this is something that we learn and relearn and learn again and relearn and keep practicing over and over and over again. But I wanted to share a verse as we dive into this episode that I have been really clinging to over the last couple of weeks. Zach and I have been reading Proverbs together, which is really cool because we don't read the same books all the time, like same books from the Bible all the time. But over the last couple of weeks, we have been doing that in the morning, and it's been really special. So we've been reading Proverbs. One of the verses that stuck out to me was Proverbs 16, verse 3. So Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3, and it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." And it doesn't say perfect your plan. It says commit it. That's surrender. It's saying, God, I'm choosing to be faithful to do what's in front of me, but I'm going to trust you with what I can't see yet. I'm going to trust you with the things I genuinely just can't control. And that applies to everything in our life. It applies to our life as a whole. It applies to my fertility. It applies to my business, finances, creativity, relationships, like fill in the blank for you, right? Your kids, whatever it might be, it applies to that. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. And it doesn't say he's going to establish like the plans that you create in your mind, that this is the outcome. No. When we commit it to the Lord, it's surrendering it to him, and our plans become his plans. He's going to establish what is best in our life. And that takes trust, right? Surrender definitely takes trust. But I came up with 3 things that I feel like, at least for me, and I'm sure there's so many more, I feel like these are a couple areas where surrender just like keeps coming up in my life. And so I wanted to share them with you and maybe see like where you can relate in your own life to them. So the first one is surrendering a timeline. And for me, obviously, my timeline that I was really having to fight to surrender was the timeline of when I got pregnant and when I had a baby. I'm 30, and 30 is a hard number as a woman. And it's not hard for me, I think, in like, oh, I'm getting old. No, I don't care about that. Let me get old. Like, that's wisdom of the Lord getting old, you know? Like, I want to keep growing wise. I want to keep like having friends and people in my life. And I feel like your life always just gets better as you get older, you know? So it wasn't that. But it does mean that, you know, your chances of getting pregnant, like it's just harder with that kind of stuff. And that really hit me. And I had to surrender to the fact that God's got me and God does have a plan in this. Maybe surrendering the timeline is like a season of growth for your business. Like you're waiting and waiting and waiting for like that big kickoff moment and it just hasn't happening. Or surrendering the timeline of like, I don't even know, something as silly as social media, right? Like again, waiting and waiting and waiting for like something big to happen that will push you into growth on social media and you're just not seeing it. You're having to be faithful in the small steps, right? Like we always want things to happen right now, but sometimes delay is part of the process. Sometimes delaying the answer to your prayers isn't a no. Sometimes it is a no. Let's just back up and say that too. Sometimes it's a no out of protection, but sometimes delaying the like result, if it is a yes, is because he's growing something in you. Or because he's growing something in someone else. Sometimes we can't actually see like the reason for the wait until after, but there's always a reason. And I say this like not from a mountaintop perspective just because I'm pregnant. I would have genuinely said this a week ago before I knew that I was pregnant. So please don't hear this as like, yeah, you can say that because you got a positive pregnancy test. No, that's not why I'm saying this. I trusted the Lord even before, even when it was really hard. I wanted to point to the goodness of God despite having a baby in my hands. So yeah, I just think God is always building something deeper when there's a delay in the timeline. It might not always look like what we want it to look like, but when we surrender that timeline, it's cool because we get to see God's power show up in a deeper way. The second thing is surrendering control. Again, I sang it because it's so real for me. And like I said, this one hits really hard, I think, as an entrepreneur because we do love to plan. We love to strategize. We love to make things happen. But I really feel like real peace comes in our lives when we realize that we just can't control all of the outcomes. We can control what we're faithful in. We can control how we obey the Lord. We can control like the small things in our lives. But for me, I feel like surrendering control in this situation was really hard with obviously, yes, like the baby stuff, but also when I was scheduled to have surgery, it meant that I couldn't book any shoots this month. That's hard. Like, guys, think about that. You know, I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with a financial gap of not booking shoots all month. And this is kind of going back, but and I haven't shared this really, so it might be kind of confusing as I do, but I was actually scheduled to have surgery in August. And then some things happened and it had to be rescheduled to November. So that's like a total side note, but it meant that I actually had 2 months, August and November, where I scheduled very minimal things. So that's actually 2 months of like financial, what feels like instability, and having to give up that control to the Lord and say like, okay, God, but like genuinely he has provided so much. And I know he's going to continue to through the rest of this month, but through random opportunities or print sales or just things that like I wasn't even trying for that have just happened. And God just always does that. He always shows up in what feels like gaps. And then the third thing is surrendering success. And I think like with what we just talked about, like really not booking shoots and stuff like that, it's weird because I feel like it's hard. Okay, let me back up. So for me right now, success looks like preparing for motherhood. And I'm going to be honest, that was the case for me pretty much all this year. I was doing my best to just prepare for motherhood, even before I was pregnant, because I knew that I wanted to be a mom. So while you're trying to have a baby, there's a lot that you can do to make sure that you're able to try and make sure that your body is healthy, especially if you're dealing with infertility things. And it can take a lot. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes saying no to other things so that I can do that. But then also, like, I want to know that my business is going to be okay and that I can still provide for my family when I'm a mom. And so I'm preparing for things like maternity leave, preparing for things like, being able to like nurse and like actually have a child and still provide in my business. And that's what success looks like for me in this season. It means I'm pivoting my business in a way that can thrive so that I can also be present as a mom one day. But that means that this year for me, it might not be as financially successful as last year. And that's okay because I'm building something different. That's what success looks like for me. But success, like the whole reason I'm saying this is because success doesn't look the same for everyone. And it doesn't look the same for everyone in every season. So again, for me, last year, success was, okay, I want to make this number. For me this year, success was, no, I want to prepare my business for motherhood and pivoting that so that it can be really financially successful next year when hopefully I'm a mom, right? And so I want to pull that back a little bit of surrendering success means being okay with a different definition of success in every season. And maybe for you right now, success is financial. Maybe for you, success is travel. You're young and you want to travel to this many places, and it's okay if you don't make this number that another business owner in your area, another photographer in your area is making this number, but they're not traveling as much. Maybe you want to travel and see the world, and that's okay. You don't have to make that number just because you have the opportunity to. No, pay your bills, save, do your thing, and just like live if that's your goal, right? I mean, we always need to be wise as we do those things, but like you can have a different definition of success and surrender to that. So surrendering success basically just means giving yourself permission to redefine what thriving looks like in this season for you. So yeah, those are like my three things: surrendering the timeline, surrendering control, and surrendering success. But I also do want to say too, and this is what I was saying kind of in the beginning of like, when I was talking about, I'm still obviously very early into the first trimester, but being pregnant for me is not the finish line of infertility, which I know is kind of a deep thing to say, but being pregnant is not the finish line. Holding a baby in my arms is. So sharing this news really early for me has been one of the most vulnerable things that I have ever done, because the truth is that I'm still really out of control here. We're still in that fragile first trimester, right? The kind of danger zone. And that's when so many women choose not to share publicly. They kind of hide it, be discreet a little bit. And then they have like that cute little announcement picture that they post, or they tell someone in person and they get to like record it and make it really cute. And I completely understand that side of things. But I think because of just the nature of our situation and it being like a miracle, which is really cool, but also it being a result of the power of prayer, I really wanted to share. But I also want to make it known that this is such a tender season. This is an uncertain season. It's kind of the space between the promise of what God can do and the proof of what he's doing, where we're just in another waiting season, right? It's like surrendering control of this. God, you did something really, really cool by making me pregnant right before the surgery. You did exactly what I asked. That's such an amazing thing. That is a miracle in itself. At the same time, now I have to trust you and say, God, even if this pregnancy doesn't work, you're still good. That's a really, really, really vulnerable place to be. It's a vulnerable place to be in my own relationship with the Lord, in my own time with him, much less to share this and allow everyone online into it. Like, what a weird thing. But in the weirdest way, I'm so glad that I am. I'm glad because you guys can be praying with me. I'm glad because I can talk with you guys about what I'm learning. I'm glad because I can just continue to say, like, God, this miracle is yours. And so is like the peace that you're giving me. And I'm just going to share that. And I pray that like this would encourage you, that it would encourage your faith, that there would be places in your life where you're asking yourself, okay, what am I holding on to, God, that you want me to release? So that's what I want to ask you basically. Like, what does surrender look like in your life right now? Maybe it's personal, like mine is, obviously, infertility. Maybe it's trusting God with your family or with your health, or fill in the blank. Maybe it's professional, right? Like maybe it's releasing anxiety about your bookings or your finances or your growth or your social media. But what is it that is weighing you down more than it's helping you move forward? And whatever your answer is to that, maybe the answer to that, the antidote to that is surrender. Because surrender, guys, is freedom. And it's not going to give you exactly what you want. That's the whole point of surrender, right? It's not giving up either. It's trusting that you don't have to carry all of this weight. You don't have to carry it like a burden. I wish I had written this down, but as I'm just yapping right now, it reminded me of the verse where in Matthew where it's like his load is easy and his burden is light, talking about Jesus. When we walk surrender well with the Lord, his burden is light. His yoke is easy. We don't have to be weighed down by the worries of this world, even when they're valid worries. Like, am I going to ever have a baby? Are we ever going to start a family beyond the family that we have as a couple? Those are really weighty thoughts, right? But surrender lightens the load when we walk with Jesus. So if you remember nothing else from today, remember this little statement. Surrender doesn't mean letting go of effort, because we still try, we still be faithful, we still be obedient, but it does mean letting go of outcomes. We still show up, we still plan and build and create and pray and read our Bibles, but we do choose to stop carrying the pressure of what only God can control. Because when we do that, peace follows. Anxiety flees when we can release control. And that genuinely, our story is proof of that. I feel like, I don't know, maybe you're in slow season right now, or you're waiting for clients, and I don't know, maybe you're waiting for a breakthrough, or you're waiting for healing. I don't know what your story is, but like I said, use our story as proof. Use our story as proof of what God can do, because your time, your waiting time, or whatever it is that you're in, it is not wasted. God is working behind the scenes in ways that you can't see yet. What was supposed to be a surgery became a miracle that I was able to share with so many people that saw my post. Like, so many people saw that, and they were able to glorify God alongside me. What was supposed to be like this like waiting season and this really hard thing became God's provision. And what felt like a little bit of a comma in the story actually ended with like an exclamation point. That was kind of cheesy, but like, go with me on it. Like, seriously, God did a miracle, and now I'm getting to share that with you guys. So God is faithful. He's faithful in my life. He's faithful in yours, whether we can see it or not. So let's like look and see where we actually can see it. If we have eyes to look, we will see his faithfulness. So, okay, that's all I got for today. At this point, I'm just yapping, but thank you so much for listening, for praying with us. If you prayed with us, thank you so, so much. And if you didn't pray, hey, I encourage you to pray today. Like, choose one thing to either thank God for or ask him about. I don't know. What's the harm in praying? You know what I mean? Like, just give it a chance, give it a try. But either way, thank you so much for being a part of my community. I love you guys so, so much, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye.